That sounds good, Don.
Don Mazzella here again for Small Business Digest. We have with us today Jessie Simpson. He's going to, if he's an unusual individual. What can I say? Many of our guests are, but this one is especially so. Jessie, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Don. Happy to be here with you.
Oh, Jessie, as we ask all our guests, first tell us about your background, which I found fascinating, and then what you're doing now, and finally a website where people can learn more.
That
It's all
sounds
you.
good. Yeah. So starting off, here we go. So starting off, who am I? Where did I come from? So my name's Jessie Simpson. I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran, former firefighter. I served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, went on 3 deployments, served in combat in Afghanistan in 2010. After that, I joined the fire service and was a
Hey,
firefighter in
just
Arizona for four
slow down,
years.
slow down, Jessie,
Oh, yeah.
slow down. We got plenty of time. Slow down.
Okay. Slow down. Well, so I was a firefighter in Arizona for 4 years. I did that for a while, and really in those two things really what drove me ever since I was a troubled youth, troubled kid in and out of school for fighting, smoking weed, cussing out teachers. Just didn't have a lot of direction. But I was in seventh grade on 9/11, and in that event in the country really popped me out of myself for the first time and gave me a sense of direction and purpose in my life that allowed me to serve or desire to serve something larger than myself. So that was my path. I graduated early from high school and joined the Marines. Went on that journey. Like I said, I did 3 deployments, served in combat in Afghanistan, and really was able to grow into a leader, like sort of become a man in a lot of different areas and learn about the world. Got to travel around the world with my best friends. We were a helo-borne assault company, so we fast roped out of helicopters and shot machine guns, which was really, really important and good for me during that time period in my life. But after I left the Marines, I did go to school. I went to ASU, Arizona State University, and when I was struggling to transition out of the Marines, just leaving the disconnection of from my brothers, the clear sense of purpose, the structure that's provided in the military, I was really struggling to find my way. And what really started to serve me or save me was becoming a volunteer. So I volunteered a lot in the community, and actually, what started it was I took a one way trip. That comes later. I took a volunteer trip to Lima, Peru, and worked at an orphanage for 2 weeks. And I worked with these kids that had sticks and balls and dirt, but the biggest smiles I'd ever seen. And it really shifted me because I went down there thinking I was going to help these kids. I was a combat Marine. Had this American privilege or whatever I thought I was going to bring, but it was really clear that they changed me. So they sent me on this path of service while I was going to ASU. Picked up with the fire department in 2014. Started a nonprofit there for a little while while I was a firefighter, and then ultimately that culminated in me being recognized as the Arizona State Firefighter of the Year in the year of 2017. And that was my childhood dream job. I was at the pinnacle of the profession, but ultimately, Don, I was having a really hard time. I was struggling a lot with sleep deprivation is just a really big problem, and I was going right into my nonprofit works. So I was doing very little rest, just driving through, and my Marine Corps trauma, my childhood stuff, the trauma from the fire service itself was really starting to catch up with me. I had a best friend that died of a heroin overdose, a best friend from the Marines who died of a heroin overdose. And I was going on heroin overdoses and just being reminded of this all the time. And I'm realizing we're not really, I felt like I wasn't really solving any problems. I wasn't really helping people in any real sustainable way. Just kind of putting band-aids on the problems and then going back on those calls a few days later. So I was feeling a little disillusioned, maybe a little frustrated with the overall experience that I had and desired something more. And really the last straw for me actually was that shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada in 2017, October of 2017. Not sure if you remember that, but it really struck a chord within me because I love going to music festivals and I shot machine guns at other people during my time in the Marines. And I thought I was doing that to prevent that from happening here. And I was wrong, unfortunately. And the reality is that shifted something inside of me that said something's off here, and I'm not going to live in this life looking forward to retirement any longer. So what that led to is that one-way flight I hinted at earlier. I took a one-way flight. I sold my things. I sold my things spring of 2018, and then took a one-way flight to Costa Rica in June of 2018. No real plans of ever coming home. I went on this mission to figure out if fire, my childhood dream job was not the thing for me, what actually is. So I took that one-way flight to figure out who I am and why I'm here. And I started multiple businesses in the process. So I traveled throughout Central and South America and backpacked throughout Europe for a couple months. And eventually I just had all these awakenings and these awarenesses that come online that just we're so much more than we're led to believe. And the things that we're told about the world are not true. One example I'll give you, Don, is the country called Colombia. And any listeners out there, I'd be curious to know what that brings up for you just right away, because generally what that is some sort of fear programming about Netflix, or something that's seen on Netflix or Narcos or Pablo Escobar, cocaine cowboys, human trafficking, all these sort of like horrific things. And that's one story about Colombia. And it's from my experience after living there for 2 months and then eventually going back to host a number of retreats because that country just totally transformed my life. It was one of the beautiful places we went to that really shifted the perspective on what we thought we were going to expect when we got there and what the reality on the ground was. And Colombia was an incredible country with so much beauty. Jungles, beaches, waterfalls were incredible. They have a really rich indigenous tradition in the Amazon, and the people there are the most warming, welcoming people you could ever possibly meet. On a number of different tours and excursions we went on during those 2 months, we had people come up to us and say, "Welcome to Colombia. Thank you for coming. My home is your home." Just over and over and over again. It wasn't just like one off. It was every time we went out. And that really shifted something deep inside of me. But ultimately, I was hosting those retreats a couple years later in Colombia, and I was paying for my retreats, with my everyday expenses with a business that wasn't yet making money. And I had the first business I had started while traveling was a coaching company, and I used my firefighter pension, which was about 20K. Went through that pretty quickly while on the road. Then I started digging in my life savings. So I'm having these really different experiences. Traveling around the world is incredible, Don. It really was an amazing experience. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out how to get my businesses off the ground. I'm trying to figure out who I am in the process. I'm trying to recreate myself and figure out how to do that within the system. And what that ultimately led to for me, Don, was this awareness around the financial system. Specifically, it was spurred by COVID and just what was happening there and just what's really going on here. It really set me on this on mission to uncover what resonates as truth within me, what I see is happening instead of like the media, what they're portraying. And ultimately, the area I decided to focus on within that was the financial system. So happy to chat about any of that stuff, but really what the opportunity I found out within that space was what we do here now at Abundance Codes. And what that is, Don, is we help small business owners get large amounts. So think 50 to $200,000 or more. We've got some over $250,000. And it's 0% interest. 0% interest for anywhere from 6 to 18 months. Most often it's about 12 months. So an entire year at 0%. And there's no business revenue documentation required, no bank statements, no tax documents. It's all based off of the borrower's personal credit score. So what we've done at Abundance Codes is we help people unlock this abundance in their life. And we've essentially reduced all barriers to entry because you don't need all that business revenue documentation. It's all based off of personal credit score. And what we do is credit score optimization to increase those scores if need be. Of course, you have to have a business. This is business funding. And if you don't have a business, we get you one set up. We do a done-for-you service with that. It's pretty much white glove, and we take care of everything. On the other side of that, in a few weeks, you have access now to an amount of money that was, for a lot of people, just simply out of reach for the longest time.
Let's stop right there and let's back up, because if I heard you correctly, let me try it. You identify people who need some sort of a push. You lend them money at 0% interest for a year to help them achieve that. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, yes, but make a couple distinctions in here just to clarify. So we're not the lender ourselves. We're a consultancy essentially, and what we're doing specifically is we're leveraging the introductory offer on business credit cards. So there's hundreds of banks across the country that offer 0% interest introductory offers. They generally range from that 6 to 18 months. Some are a little bit longer. Most are about 12 months. And so what we're doing, Don, is we're a consultancy going in and we understand the system. We have the systems, we understand the strategy, and we have the right relationships to get small business owners this large amount of money. So if I'll share a case study here just to kind of give an example, because to be totally transparent, anybody for the most part, as long as you have a credit score 680 or above and a business, then you could go, excuse me, then you could go and you could apply for a 0% interest business credit card. Now, the value we add is the amount. That's the abundance. We can get up to $250,000 in 0% interest funding, and there's no way really, unless you have a deep insight into all the systems, the strategy, and the relationships, you could recreate that. So we do a done for you on that. Now, back to that case study. So we had one client who came to us after having went to Chase Bank, and this is pretty standard. Chase has two 0% interest business credit cards, both for 12 months. So that's huge for small business owners. So he went in by himself and got the first one, and he got a $5,100 limit, $5,100. So, that's pretty standard. That's what they give out generally if you were to go, and if that's all you need, amazing. You don't need us. But if you need more, 50K or more, you really do need us. And so what we went and did when he came to us is like, hey guys, I need more funding here. We went, leveraged our system strategy and relationships. And on the other 0% interest business credit card to Chase, we got an $80,000, $80,000. That's a 14x difference. So that's the value we provide, although we're still just leveraging that 0% interest introductory offer on business credit cards.
Okay, we're going to go back again. So it's clear. I go in and Chase gives me $5,100, which is pretty standard. But you go in and say to Chase, no, based on this, we think Don Mazzella should get 80,000, and they agree with you. But there's no personal guarantee or anything else that goes into this.
That's the one thing. There is the personal guarantee. So it's based off a personal credit score. I'd say about 70% is you have to have a business. The age of the business matters. I say that's about 30%, but the other 70% is the personal credit score. So there is a personal guarantee, and that's the only way to work around with no business revenue documentation. But one things we're a big advocate for is having the financial separation. So it's all business credit. We had a client over $216,000 in funding, and he's maxed that out. He's got a lot of things going on. He's doing different investments. He's got a lot of things growing on his business. So he's maxed that out. That is not showing up on his personal credit whatsoever. Whereas obviously, if you maxed out all your personal credit cards, it would take your credit score. You would not be able to get any new. So there's a separation coming in. Unless there's a default on the debt, then it would roll over and be a late payment and derogatory on the personal credit. But this is unsecured debt. And we're big advocates for utilizing it to your highest advantage and going in on something legit and building it up. But ultimately, it's unsecured debt. There's no business revenue documentation. So we've really pigeonholed ourselves into a position where we can really unlock this amount of funding for those that have a vision. And our belief is we want to help you create your vision without having to risk your own personal assets or spend your firefighter pension like I did, or spend your life savings and go all in with this business credit.
So I'm at a point with my business that if I had some more money, I could really make it grow. That's where you come in, if I'm hearing you correctly.
That's definitely the best use case, 100%. There's a couple different options here. So I appreciate you bringing that through. Generally, we're a best use case if you are what you just said, Don. You've got something that's going, you need to add more fuel to the fire. And instead of taking a home equity line of credit on your house or getting money from investors and giving up equity or whatever other areas you might be considering outside of your own personal investments as well, you can use business credit. You can throw that fuel on the fire, and that can grow your business. And that's what it's for. Now, the other caveat here, or one thing I will say, just because this is my journey, and really I want to be helping people that were in a similar position, because what I found, whether it's traveling the world or starting a business, a lot of people don't know how they're going to make it happen. that how. They don't know how to the how. And a lot of times that how, that question is how they're going to afford to take that leap. So for those that have a clear vision and they want to get something going, and if they're considering spending their own personal credit card or home equity line of credit or their own investments, we are big advocates for using the business credit because you get 0% for 12 months or longer generally. And you can use the business credit. So in those cases, if you don't have a business already, like I said, we do a done for you business setup. We have what are called aged LLCs or shelf companies. So you kind of cut to the head of the line as far as skipping over that time mark that I mentioned earlier, and you can get to the front of the line while we optimize your credit score. And then even as a new business, with your business and your score being good, you can get $100,000 or more relatively easily in funding through us.
What's the advantage to the bank? Banks are notorious for not giving you money when you need it, but shovel it at you when you don't need it. When you come to them and say, "Give this," and they say yes, why do they do that?
That's a great question. And you hit it right on the head with the idea that banks want to loan money to you when you don't need it. So, and a big determinant on this is like your personal credit score. So if you're like your credit score shot, they know you don't have the best relationship with money, or at least you have in the past. And that is what it is. There's a way to remove those things and get up to speed. That's really a big determinant here. But other than that, what we're doing is we're leveraging high level relationships at major banks. So, for example, Don, and this is always the case, there's some nuance because there's different banks, they all have different protocols. But in general, if you get in with the right people and you understand how the system works, which is what we do, then you can get in the right position. And I will say this, for example, I won't name the bank, but we have a really good relationship manager at one of the big banks that offers that we've gotten $50,000 to $90,000 on a single business credit card. Yeah, no, and unless you're raking it in millions and millions of dollars, in business revenue that you can prove, very, very unlikely you'll be able to get that line of credit. We actually got a client who had a 720 credit score just last week, a $75,000 credit card, which is not possible without us. So that being said, we have these high level relationships where we can go in with them, and they're typically working with $1 million plus companies, and we're able to like go in alongside them, and they're applying. They have a different underwriting protocol than you would if you were to go in person to the branch or apply online. The relationship managers we work with have their own underwriting protocol with their own underwriters essentially that help us navigate that back end part of the system.
That's true. I'm just based on my own experience. I'm at 780 as my score. My wife is 840, 820 at the top. And we get inundated with card offerings. But when in my earlier days as an entrepreneur, I couldn't get a bank to talk to me. So
Yep.
So I have a very negative feeling about bankers. So, but do you only use bankers, or do you use fintech companies or other people?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate you sharing that too. And I'll be the same. Like personally, and you didn't ask me to go here, but I'm gonna go here a little bit. One of the things I talked about a little bit ago was like this awakening I had around the financial system. And my personal belief is the financial system in our country is completely rigged. It's completely rigged. It's a fiat currency. It's not backed by anything. And because of that, it's bound to inflate and collapse. That's what happened every time throughout history. Every single major currency, that's exactly what's happened. We are living during that time where that's going to happen here in the United States. So the best opportunity, I believe personally, is to leverage this fiat currency that happens to be sent on to us on a plastic credit card to acquire assets or scale a business or invest in yourself and your vision and your family, so you don't get caught in the position where you're like having no assets and all your money is worthless because of the inflation that's inevitable. Quite frankly, it's inevitable. It's happening. So appreciate you letting me go on that little rant there, but I think it's important to be said, and that's where I'm at, and that's where I usually like to track people understand, and they're looking for a way to take advantage of the system in a totally legitimate way. We're just getting business credit cards, but do it in a way that will provide for your family long term. And with that, all that said, I do apologize, but I forgot the question you had asked that lit me up with that.
I just want to say something. if I walk into the bank and ask for $2 million, it'd be a lot easier than if I asked for $20,000. The application is much shorter for the bigger money. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, for sure. That could be the case.
I'm going to go back to your earlier thing and ask you a different question for the moment. You went into the Marines at a young age. Well, I always think the Marines build men, and it's interesting the different people I've seen come out of the Marine Corps. Um, what's your take on that? Is the Marine Corps a viable answer for a young person who's unsure of his or her future?
Well, I'm gonna do my best to answer this, Don. And I'll start off by saying, that it was for me. It was really important. It gave me structure. Unfortunately, our families in the United States have been devastated. A lot of people have fathers have left the home. And because of that, young men, and this was my experience, we don't have solid male role models. So we look to rappers or like celebrities or apparently like YouTube, TikTok influencers and that kind of stuff now. And those people they make money off of us. And they don't have any for the most part, and I'm speaking generally here, but a lot of times they don't have the best interests of the young youth of America in mind, unfortunately, or gangs and these sort of things, right? Well, the military provides structure that all young kids need, young boys. It provides outlets for physical aggression, which all young boys need. It provides an ability to travel the world. It provides a sense of purpose. It provides a really tight network of brotherhood. Like what makes gangs so appealing is that connection, that camaraderie. Now you're doing things that are illegal and dangerous and these things, but the Marines is like, I don't want to call it a gang, but basically, it brings those same sort of things, the camaraderie, the brotherhood or sisterhood. I mean, young women too, and the ability to travel the world with the best friends. So for a lot of those reasons, it was really good for me during that time. Now, why I hesitated a little bit, Don, I think things are changing, and I think there's some concerns about what's happening in the world, and I personally don't know if I would be an advocate. I have a son actually; he's going to be here in September, so he'll be a little while before he would ever consider joining the Marines, and who knows where we'll be at that point. But one of the things I learned, Don, when I separated from the Marines was about the military industrial complex. And and that was really shocking for me because I had this illusion that America was doing the right things for the right reasons. And I found from my research and my experiences that wasn't necessarily the case. And I'm concerned, which is why I hesitate to be a big advocate for this for young men now. I'm concerned that there's some of the institutions in the United States have been a bit corrupted, and there's a lot of things that are going on that are deeply troublesome, and ultimately I don't know if I can really advocate for sending our young men across the world to fight in these bankers wars to feed the military industrial complex any longer. And I also, you didn't ask me this, but I'm going here with you, Don. One of the things I'm also concerned about is sending all of our young able-bodied men away when there is an invasion happening in the United States itself, with over 10 million illegal immigrants who have crossed the border in the last 3 years. There's a lot of things that are going on that I believe personally we're going to need young men, able-bodied, here at home, and not under the control of the government or the military. That's my personal belief. But in terms of all the other things that come through in general with the structure, the leadership capabilities of being tested as a young man, it's a really great way. I just don't know if it's what I would be doing now, or I would be sending my family and friends during this time.
Okay, Jesse, your website for people that want to learn more.
Yeah, the best way to find me is on Instagram, action_Jesse. The website's abundancecodes.org. Feel free to reach out to us. We got updates coming and would love to connect with you, see what resonated within this podcast.
Okay, now we have just a couple of minutes left. What would you like to leave our audience with?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, times are changing, and the things that we had available to us, the idea of what America was, is evolving. And I believe that we're responsible, as responsible adults, we're responsible for deciding what comes next. We are responsible for creating the new vision for our families and our communities instead of letting these people in centralized positions of power impose their vision upon us. So whatever that means for you, my invitation is to take responsibility. If it involves starting or scaling a business, let us use the fake money on a plastic credit card to help you do that. And so you can grow into something that you can look back and be proud of and provide for your family during this massive changes that are on the horizon.
Well, on that note, Jessie Simpson, we say thank you for a very interesting and different time together. Thank you.
Thank you.